Good day, everyone. Today we'll be discussing about one of the international legal instruments as base of the Philippine social welfare policies, which is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. On December 18, 1979, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. So, itong United Nations General Assembly, yung pangunahing nagde-decide, gumagawa ng mga policy or batas. Ito din yung representative institution ng United Nations. It entered into forces as an international treaty on September 3, 1981. After the 20th country had ratified it. Tapos yung 1989 10th anniversary na nitong convention, halos 100 nations na yung tumanggap na mag-commit sa provision na to. The convention was the culmination of more than 30 years of work by the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, a body established in 1946 to monitor the situation of women and to promote women's rights. Yung mga naging work or actions ng United Nations Commissions ay nagkaroon ng malaking epekto sa mga kababaihan dahil nabigyang pansin nito yung unequal rights ng mga kababaihan mula sa mga kalalakihan. Kasama na doon yung women are expected to stay at home and do the chores, tapos yung mga lalaki ang pwedeng magtrabaho. Kaya during that time, tumanggap yung mga manufacturing companies ng mga babae at nag-prove lang na kaya din gawin ng mga babae. So dahil sa efforts na to, naglabasan yung mga iilang conventions at declarations. Isa na nga dito yung Cedaw. So kung saan ito yung pinaka-central and most comprehensive instrument. Sa mga human rights treaties, itong convention na to yung naging daan para mabigyan ng importansya at atensyon yung mga human rights concerns ng mga kababaihan. So, the spirit of the convention is rooted in the goals of the United Nations to reaffirm faith in the fundamental human rights and dignity and worth of the human person in equal rights of men and women. So, yung document na to, yung nagbigay ng meaning ng equality at kung paano natin ito ma-achieve. Hindi lang din ito nagpapakita ng International Bill of Rights for Women dahil merong ding mga plano para sa mga bansa para ma-ensure na yung rights ay na-enforce. So, the convention's preamble states clearly that extensive discrimination against women continues to exist. Example ng discrimination is when you treat an employee unfairly because they are women. So, an estimated in 1 out of 3 women globally have experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime, mostly at the hands of their partners. Those said example of discrimination violates the principles of equality of rights and respect for human dignity. So, unlike other human rights treaties, the convention is also concerned with the dimension of human reproduction as well as with the impact of cultural factors on gender relations. Dahil merong double standard or mayroong policy na favor lang sa mga lalaki at may negative view yung lipunan tungkol sa kababaihan, kaya ang mga babae ay may mas kaunting access sa information tungkol sa sexual and reproductive health kaysa sa mga lalaki. Men have more rights to access and learn the information, and that the females are more likely to be scolded when asking elders about sexual matters. Concerned din sila sa impact of cultural factors on gender relations. That's why we need to challenge cultural expectations that women should be responsible for things that men are not. Women are equally capable as men to be successful and happy. Our childhood upbringing and the culture should reflect that. So the legal status of women receives the broadest attention. Concern over the basic rights of political participation has not diminished since the adoption of the Convention of the Political Rights of Women in 1952, whereby women are guaranteed to have 2 rights to vote, to hold public office, and to exercise public functions. Kaya ang mga babae hindi lang nagkaroon ng karapatang bumoto, kundi pati magkaroon ng pagkakataon na to hold a government position and perform public duties. Pwede na ding i-represent ng mga kababaihan yung country nila internationally. Sobrang daming laws ang naipasa para mas magkaroon ang mga kababaihan ng karapatan at pantay na pagtingin sa lipunan. So, the continuation of introduction of Cedaw to be discussed by Kami.
So aside from civil rights issues, the convention also devotes major attention to a most vital concern of women, namely their reproductive rights. The link between discrimination and women's reproductive role is a matter of recurrent concern in the convention. For example nito ay yung Article 5 na nag-a-advocate ng proper understanding of maternity as a social functions na nagdedemand ng shared responsibility sa pagpapalaki ng bata by both sexes. Also, obligation ng society na mag-offer ng mga social services kagaya ng child care facilities that allow individuals na mapagsabay yung work nila at family obligation as well as yung participation nila in public life. The third general thrust of the convention aims at enlarging our understanding of the concept of human rights, as it gives formal recognition to the influence of culture and tradition on restricting women's enjoyment of their fundamental rights. Here, we are breaking stereotypes. We are changing the traditional role of a man as well as sa mga kababaihan to achieve full equality ng men and women sa society. So to achieve that, the convention mandates sa mga revisions ng mga textbooks, mga school programs, and teaching method with a view of eliminating the stereotypes concept in the field of education. So by that, may malaking changes na possibly malaking changes on how society views women. The implementation of the convention is monitored by the Committee on the Elimination of Cedaw. The committee is composed of 23 experts elected by the states parties as individuals of a high moral standing and competence in the field covered by the convention. So at least every 4 years, ina-expect ng mga state parties na makapag-submit ng national report sa committee indicating the measures they have adopted to give effect to the provision of the convention. So the next slide will be discussed by Ms. Parilla.
So the Philippines' participation to Cedaw has contributed massively in the advancement and empowerment of the Filipino women. This include the enactment of Republic Act 710, otherwise known as the Magna Carta of Women. So, Magna Carta of Women is a comprehensive women's human rights law that seeks to eliminate discrimination against women by recognizing, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of Filipino women, especially those in marginalized sector. So the recent progression of women's rights in the Philippines is largely due to higher female economic participation and opportunity. So yun nga, nagdulot ng napakalaking impact yung pag-join ng bansa natin sa Cedaw para maiangat at mapaunlad ang mga kababaihang Pilipino. Dahil dito, maraming mga batas ang naipatupad para bigyang pansin ang mga karapatan ng mga kababaihan at maprotektahan sila laban sa karahasan at pang-abuso. So, madaming magagandang impact ang laws na naipatupad para sa kababaihan. Gender equality and the empowerment of women, girls is not just a goal itself but a key to sustainable development, economic growth, and peace and security. So ito na, kasama na yung Magna Carta for Women. So isa itong batas para sa proteksyon ng karapatang pantao ng mga kababaihan. At naglalayon na tanggalin ang lahat ng uri ng diskriminasyon, lalo na sa mga kababaihan ng marginalized o mga babae na bahagi ng sektor na hindi nabibigyan ng wastong representasyon sa lipunan. Ito ay naisabatas noong August 14, 2009 after pirmahan ni dating Pangulong Gloria Macapagal Arroyo ginawa na responsibilidad ng pamahalaan na proteksyonan ang kababaihan sa lahat ng uri ng diskriminasyon at ipagtanggol ang kanilang mga karapatan. So maraming mga karapatan yung naibigay ng batas na to. Isa dito yung patas na pagtrato sa babae at lalaki sa harap ng batas, karapatan sa patas na pagtrato sa larangan ng sports. So iginawa din ng batas na ito yung pagkakaroon ng 2-month leave na may bayad sa mga babae na sumailalim sa isang medical na operasyon or pagbubuntis. So ilan lang yan sa mga batas ay sa mga karapatan na naibigay ng batas ng Magna Carta of Women. So another law is the Republic Act 7877, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, an act declaring sexual harassment unlawful in the employment, education, or training environment and for other purposes. RA 7877 mandates that the employer of or the head of the work-related educational or training environment or institution must provide the procedures for the resolution, settlement, or prosecution of acts of sexual harassment. So, ang sexual harassment ay yung sapilitang paghingi, paghiling or pag-utos at iba pa na sexual na pabor mula sa iba. Ito man ay tanggapin, pagbigyan or hindi ng biktima na nanggaling sa employer, manager, supervisor, ahente ng employer, guro, instructor, professor, coach, tagapagsanay o sino mang may kapangyarihan, impluwensya o moral na otoridad sa iba sa loob ng trabaho o lugar ng pag-aaral o pagsasanay. So, merong different types ng abuse, physical, verbal, and paggamit ng mga bagay, larawan o sulat na may bahid ng sexual. So, alin man sa mga nabanggit na klase ng sexual na harassment ay dapat may gawing hakbang yung institution kung saan nangyari yung paglabag. Kunwari sa teacher at student, yung school ay dapat magtakda ng proseso upang imbestigahan yung kaso ng sexual harassment. So number 2, bumuo ng CODI or Committee on Decorum and Investigation na tatanggap ng mga reklamo patungkol sa sexual harassment. So ano nga ba yung parusa ng paglabag sa batas ng sexual harassment o RA 7877? So ang anumang paglabag ay maaring maparusahan ng pagkakakulong ng hindi bababa sa 1 buwan at hindi lalampas ng 6 na buwan o kaya yung multa na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso at di lalampas sa 20,000 piso o di kay parehong pagkakakulong at multa sa diskresyon ng korte. So the next law is the Republic Act 8353, the Anti-Rape Law of 1997, an act expanding the definition of the crime of rape, reclassifying the same as a crime against persons, amending for the purpose Act number 3815 as amended, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code, and for the purposes. So, rape, when and how committed? Rape is committed by a man who shall have carnal knowledge of a woman under any of the following circumstances. A. Through force, threat, or intimidation. Yung paggamit ng force or pagbabanta doon sa victim. B. When the offended party is deprived of reason or otherwise unconscious. So yung pananambantala sa victim dahil siya ay walang malay or unconscious. So C, by means of fraudulent machination or grave abuse of authority. So yung paggamit mo ng power para makontrol mo yung victim. So D, when the offended party is under 16 years of age or is demented, even though none of the circumstances mentioned above the present. So dati, under 12 years old lang. Pero itinaas ito sa 16 because President Duterte has signed into law a bill raising the age of sexual consent from 12 to 16 years old. This is the Republic Act number 11648 na pinirmahan noong March 4. So what is the purpose of RA 8505? To give assistance and protection for rape victims in the litigation of their cases and their recovery. The Congress likewise enacted Republic Act 8505 for the purpose establishing Rape Crisis Center in every province and city. It is hereby declared the policy of the state to provide necessary assistance and protection for the rape victims. So ginawa itong batas na to para maprotektahan yung mga victims ng rape at makapagbigay sila ng assistance. So, as explicitly provided under Section 3 of the said Act, Rape Crisis Center shall, ito yung mga services and programs na ibibigay sa mga rape victims. So, provide rape victims with psychological counseling, medical and health services including their medical legal examination. So, pag nakakaranas ng mga ganitong situation, yung victim ay pwedeng maka-experience ng trauma. So, kinakailangan nilang mag-undergo ng counseling. So, secure free legal assistance or service when necessary for rape victims. So, assist rape victims in the investigation to hasten the arrest of offenders and filing of cases in court. So, kung gustong mag-file ng case ng victim, ay i-assist din ito ng crisis center. So, ensure the privacy and safety of rape victims. Provide psychological counseling and medical services whenever necessary for the family of rape victims. Develop and undertake a training program for law enforcement officers, public prosecutors, lawyers, medical legal officers, social workers, and barangay officials on human rights and responsibilities, gender sensitivity, and legal management of rape cases, and adopt and implement programs for the recovery of the rape victims. So, other laws are to be discussed by Princess.
RA 8505 Rape Victim Assistance and Protection Act of 1998. RA 8505 provides assistance and protection for rape victims, establishing for the purpose of Rape Crisis Center in every province and city, authorizing and appropriation of funds for the establishments and operation of the Rape Crisis Center. So, yung RA number 8505 is tinutugunan yung problema ito sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng tulong at protection sa mga rape victims through the establishment of Rape Crisis Center. So, sa pamamagitan ng batas na ito, ang mga survivors gaya ng traffic, prostitute, physically abused, and exploited women and children. National agency like DSWD, DOH, DILG, and DOG shall establish in every province and city a rape crisis center located in a government hospital or health clinic or in any other suitable place for the purposes for the providing rape victims with psychological counseling, medical and health services, including their medical legal examination, and the securing free legal assistance or services when necessary for rape victims, and assisting rape victims in the investigation to hasten the arrest of offenders and the filing of cases in court, and yung ensuring the privacy and safety of rape victims, providing psychological counseling and medical services whenever necessary for the family of rape victims, developing, undertaking, and public prosecutors, lawyers, medical legal officers, social workers, and barangay official on human rights and responsibilities, gender sensitive. The last is yung adapting and implementing programs for the recovery of rape victims. The DSWD shall be lead agency in the establishment and operation of the Rape Crisis Center. Next slide po. The Republic Act RA 9208, known as the Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003, institutes policy to eliminate trafficking in person, especially women and children. It establishes the necessary institutional mechanism to protect and support trafficked persons and provides penalties for the violation. In 2012, RA 9208 was amended through RA 10364, or the expanded Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2012. So yung Republic Act 9208, or the Anti-Trafficking Persons Act of 2003 as amended by RA 10364, also known as the expanded Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2012. Republic Act na to is yung Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003 ay isang batas na ipinasa para wakasan yung trafficking in person, lalo na sa mga babae at mga bata. So, layo ng batas na ito is mapatupad mapatupad ng patakaran at paraan para protektahan at suportahan yung mga biktima ng trafficking at maparusahan yung mga lumalabag sa batas na to. And the next slide will discuss by Mikey Paz.
Family Code. Family law establishes roles and procedures for concluding and dissolving a marriage. Roles and procedures for deeming a marriage invalid. The family law regulates personal property and non-property relations between members of family, spouses, parents, and children, adopted parents, and adopted children. At once nga po sa marriage, before po ito mangyari, karamihan po talaga need ng permission from the both parents para sa kasiguraduhan ng pagsasama ng mag-asawa. At sa marriage nga po, ang family ang minsang nagpapasya sa paraang may mga panuntunan na sinusunod, lalo na kung mayaman ang mapapangasawa ng babae at talagang napakadominante ang pamilya ng lalaki. Sa lipunan ay magkakaroon ng gap sa kung ano yung matatanggap na property as a wife and part of family. Pero mas lamang yung isyo na binabahagi ang lahat ng ari-arian sa bawat kaanib ng pamilya, maliit man o malaki po. From the Executive Order Number 209, 1987, Article 1, marriage is special contract of permanent union between a man and a woman, entered into in accordance with law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. It is the foundation of the family in an inviolable social institution whose nature's consequences and incidents are governed by law and not subject to stipulation, except that marriage settlements may fix the property relations during the marriage within the limits provided by this code. Mula sa Executive Order Number 209, 1987, Article 1, kinikilala ang marriage bilang isang matibay na agreement sa pagitan ng lalaki at babae na parehong kagustuhan ng dalawa na magpakasal. At dahil ang marriage sa mata ng lipunan at ng lahat ay isang pundasyon para sa pagkakaroon ng family. Ito yung bagay na maaring pakialaman ng batas kung sakali na ang mag-asawa ay magkaroon ng problema, gaya ng paghihiwalay, pero yung sinasabi natin na paghihiwalay or in other terms ay divorce ay wala pa dito sa Pilipinas, pero may annulment. At sabi ng ilang mayroon namang divorce dito sa Pilipinas kung may sapat na pera at katunayan talaga na hindi na nagpa-function ang kanilang relationship. during and after of marriage maliban na lamang sa usaping ari-arian ng dalawa na kung saan ang marriage ay ang nagbubuklod sa iyon sa pagsasama ng mag-asawa. What is Anti-Violence Against Women in Children Act or Republic Act number 9262? Ang Anti-Violence Against Women in Their Children Act of 2004 o mas kilala bilang VAUC ay isang batas na ipinasa sa Pilipinas para sa proteksyon ng kababaihan at mga bata mula sa karahasan at upang matugunan ang karahasan na ginagawa laban sa mga kababaihan at mga bata. RA 9262, the Anti-Violence Women's and Their Children Act of 2004. Ibig sabihin dapat ikonsidera ang participation ng mga kababaihan pagdating sa mga civil services na ginagawa ng mga lalaki. More on equally, given dapat yung opportunities for both men and women para sa ikakaprogress ng bansa at talagang ineliminate yung discrimination against women para magkaroon naman ng pagbabago sa sistema ng economic, social, and cultural bilang may karapatan naman ng lahat sa bawat pagtatamasa ng sariling pangangailangan. Gayon din, matustusan ang kinakailangan din ng bansa. Bagaman, may iilan na dinidiscriminate pa rin ang mga kababaihan. Meron pa rin namang batas kung saan pinoprotektahan ang mga kababaihan sa anumang uri ng pang-aabuso. Ito ay ang RA 9262 that acknowledge that women who have retaliated against their partner or who commit violence as a form of self-defense may have suffered from battered woman syndrome. Ang krimen ng karahasan laban sa kababaihan at kanilang mga anak ay ginagawa sa pamamagitan ng anuman o isang serye ng mga kilos na ginagawa ng sinumang tao na nagre-resulta ng pinsala sa katawan o pisikal, sexual na karahasan o anumang kilos na likas na sexual, pinsala o magdulot ng pagdurusa sa isip o emosyonal, o pang-aabuso sa ekonomiya.
Women's and Children Desk and Services. The Republic Act number 9710, also known as the Magna Carta of Women, was assigned into law to recognize, protect, and uphold the rights of women, address issues of discriminations against them. To achieve its purpose, one of its provisions is the creation of a violence against women desk in every barangay. So ano nga ba yung VAU desk? A VAU desk is a physical facility that addresses VAU cases in a manner that is gender sensitive, managed by a person assigned by the punong barangay. It is where the victim survivor can immediately go to seek help. So hindi lang meron din to sa mga police station na madaling ma-access or mas convenient sa mga victim survivors. So bakit nga ba meron ganito? Dahil there are still numerous instances na kung saan yung mga victim survivors are hindi nila nakukuha yung necessary services and intervention na kailangan nila. So they end up na lang na manahimik and pwedeng maulit-ulit yung abuse na nangyari sa kanila. Due to lack of support, a poor justice system, and economic dependence on their abusers usually result in unreported and repetitive abuse. So yun yung function din ng VAU na para mas convenient sa mga tao. Next slide po. What are the functions of VAU desk? Respond to gender-based violence cases brought to the barangay, record the number of gender-based violence handled by the barangay, and submit a quarterly report on all cases of VAU to the DILG City, Municipal Field Office and the City, and MSWDO. Assist victims of VAW in securing barangay protection order and access necessary services. Develop the barangay's gender responsive plan in addressing gender-based violence and coordinate with. So the next law is RA 11313, the Safe Spaces Act or the Bawal Bastos Law. So this law defines gender-based sexual harassment in street, public spaces, online workplaces, and educational and training institutions. The law penalizes all forms of sexual harassment in street and public places as well as in online spaces. So ano nga ba yung gender-based sexual harassment? Ito yung mga acts which are committed through any unwanted and uninvited sexual actions or remarks against any persons regardless kung ano nga ba yung motibo niya for committing such action or remarks. So ang law na to ay pumuprotekta sa anumang pambabastos na ginawa public in any person. Why do we need RA 11313, Safe Spaces Act, when we already have the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995? So, because dahil nakapaloob lamang sa law na yun, sa Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, yung mga violations sa workplace and educational or training environment. So, ang Bawal Bastos Law is more comprehensive. Mas malawak yung nasasakupan. Mas maraming violations under this law. So what are the acts of gender-based sexual harassment in public spaces? Ano ba yung public spaces na tinutukoy? Ito yung mga malls, buildings, transportation, terminals, mga public utility vehicles, roads, sidewalks, yan yung mga public spaces na tinutukoy. So the first one is catcalling or unwanted remarks direct towards a person. Commonly done in the form of wolf-whistling, misogynistic, homophobic, and sexist slurs, as well as unwanted invitations. Ano yung wolf-whistling is yung paninipol. Misogynistic is yung mga discrimination against women. Ito yung mentality na men are better than women. Homophobic, ito yung mga pagtawag ng sa isang tao ng bakla or tomboy. Sa mga unwanted invitations, ito yung mga nakakatanggap ka ng opinion sa ibang tao na kahit hindi mo naman ka-close. So there are penalties vary according to the act of gender-based sexual harassment committed and how often a person was convicted for violating the laws. So dito naman tayo sa demonstrated gender-based sexual harassment. Ito yung persistent and invited comments or gestures on a person's appearance. Ito yung parang pagpuna sa physical appearance ng isang tao na kadalasan ay sexual overtone yung pagkakasabi or may may pagkamanyak yung pagkapansin sa appearance ng isang tao. Relentless request for personal details. Ito naman yung consistent na paghingi ng personal information ng isang tao, like ng phone number, yan. Pag consistent, it is a violation sa law na to. The third one is statement of sexual comments and suggestions. Ito yung mga natatanggap mong comments na alam mong below the belt na. Next is public masturbation or flashing of private parts, exhibitionist. Ito na, wala na example kasi may mga cases talaga na nare-report na ganito. Kahit sa Facebook, makikita nyo na parang may tao talagang ginagawa yon sa mga bus, sa mga public vehicles. And exhibitionist, ito yung mga taong lumalabas ng walang suot, walang saklot. Yung kita yung ari nila. And any advances, whether verbal or physical, that is unwanted and has threatened one's sense of personal space and physical safety. Next slide po. So, tanong, ang sexual harassment through online ba ay nakapaloob pa din sa batas na to? If your answer is yes, you are correct. Kasi ang sexual harassment na naranasan through online ay violation pa rin under this law. For example, the use of information and communication technology and terrorizing and intimidating victims through physical, psychological, and emotional traits. Unwanted sexual, misogynistic, homophobic, and sexist remarks and comments online, whether publicly or through direct and private message. Kagaya rin ito kanina doon sa una natin yung mga catcalling, yung verbal, pero dito through online naman nangyayari. Yung mga comments, mga unwanted comments, uninvited comments na nare-receive ng isang tao through online. Kahit man yan, public man yan, or through private message. Next slide po.
Enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedom without distinction of any kinds of proceeds to include sex among the grounds of such impermissible distinction. So, pinalakas at pinalawak yung International Bill of Human Rights sa pagbibigay diin sa human rights of women. Yung Universal Declaration of Human Rights is nagpapahayag ng mga karapatan sa bawat isa sa pagkakapantay-pantay ng mga human rights and fundamental freedom without distinction of any kind, and nagpatuloy na isama yung kasarian among the grounds of such impressible distinction. And so yung international rights at ang international civil and political rights is noong 1966 is nagsasalin ng mga prinsipyo ng declarations sa legally binding form. So, clearly state that the rights set forth are applicable to all persons without distinctions of any kind, and again put forth sex as such a ground of impermissible distinction. So, in addition, each covenant specifically binds a ceding or ratifying state o nagpapatibay upang isagawa at upang matiyak na ang mga babae at lalaki ay may pantay na karapatan to the enjoyment of all the rights they establish. The International Bill of Human Rights combine the related human treaties, thus lay down a comprehensive set of rights to which all persons, including women, are entitled. However, the fact of women's humanity proves insufficient to guarantee them the enjoyment to their internationally agreed the rights. So, yung International Bill of Human Rights is kasama ng mga kaugnay na kasunduan sa human rights is yung naglatag sila ng comprehensive set ng mga karapatan kung saan yung lahat ng tao kabilang dito yung mga kababaihan ay may karapatan. So, however, yung katotohanan ng woman's humanity ay napatunayang hindi sapat o upang magaranti sa kanila ang enjoyment ng kanilang mga karapatan na napagkasunduan sa buong mundo. So, mula nang itatag ito, hinangad ng Commission on the Status of Women na tukuyin at ipaliwanag yung mga pangkat sa mga instrumento mula sa pananaw ng kasarian. Gawain ng CSW ay nagresulta na nagprotekta na ma-promote yung human rights ng mga kababaihan. Next. The Commission on Human Rights originally established in 1946 as a subcommission but quickly granted the status of full commission as a result of the pressure exerted by Women's Act. So, during the period 1949 to 1959, the commission expanded the following commission on the political rights of women adopted by the General Assembly on 20th December 1952. The second one is the Convention on the Nationality on 29th January 1957, Convention on Consent of Marriage, Minimum Age for Marriage and Registration of Marriage, adopted on 7th of the 7th of November 1962, and yung last is yung recommendation on consent to marriage, minimum age for marriage and registration of marriage, adopted on 1st of November 1965. So each of these treaties protected and promoted the rights of women in area in which the Commission considered such rights to particularly vulnerable, but it was believed that except in those areas women's rights were best protected and promoted by the general human rights. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or Cedaw, adopted in 1979 by the UN General Assembly, is often described as an international bill of rights for women, consisting of a preamble and 30 articles. It defines what constitutes discriminations against women and set up agenda for national action to end such as discrimination. So itong CEDAW na ito is kadalasang dinidescribe bilang isang international bill of rights for women. At itong CEDAW na ito is binubuo ng isang preamble and 30 articles. Tinutukoy nito kung ano yung bumubuo sa discrimination laban sa kababaihan and set up agenda for national action upang wakasan yung naturang discrimination. So, itong CEDAW na ito ay may 4 parts in categorized area. So, the first one is yung Article 1 to 5. It is a general framework of the convention. So, the second is yung Article 6 to 16. It is a specific substantive issues. And the third one is yung Article 17 to 23. Ito naman yung committee and procedures. And the last yung Article 24 to 30 naman is yung administration and interpretations. So, and the first article will discuss by Ms. Leia Parilla.
So, the first article, anumang actions na nagpapakita ng inequality, pagbubukod sa babae at lalaki, or pagre-restrict dahil sa gender mo, na may purpose para hindi makamit yung na ang kababaihan yung freedom and rights na meron siya, katulad ng right to live free from violence, slavery, and discrimination, to be educated, to own property, to vote, and to earn a fair and equal wage. So Article 2, para makapag-adapt ng appropriate legislative and other measures katulad ng pagpapataw ng parusa if kinakailangan, para maiwasan ang lahat ng diskriminasyon laban sa kababaihan. Para na din magtatag ng legal protection sa mga karapatan ng kababaihan sa pantay na batayan sa mga kalalakihan. Article 3, responsibility ng government na magsagawa ng mga hakbang katulad ng pagpapatupad ng mga batas para ma-ensure na magkaroon ng development at advancement ang mga kababaihan sa lahat ng fields. Ang mga kababaihan ay hindi pang bahay lang, kaya din nilang makipagsabayan in terms of sa politics, socially, economic, and cultural fields. So Article 4, so hindi itinuturing na diskriminasyon yung mga hakbang na naglalayong isulong ang pagkapantay-pantay ng kasarian. Pero hindi rin dapat magkaroon ng maintenance ng unequal or separate standards. Tingin kasi ng iba, porket maraming movements towards women empowerment ay para ma-overpower yung mga kalalakihan. Pero the truth is, when the goal of equality of opportunity and treatment have been met, these policies will be phased out. So, Article 5. So, according sa article na to, kailangan baguhin yung social and cultural pattern na men are superior than women. Pati na din yung stereotype sa role ng men and women. Kung saan ang household chores are only for women and men are supposed to earn for the family. Sinasabi din dito na dapat equal yung responsibility ng babae sa lalaki sa pagpapalaki ng mga anak. Ang childcare ay hindi lang role ng mga kababaihan. So, Article 6, so responsibility ng government na gumawa ng mga batas na magpoprotekta sa mga kababaihan laban sa women trafficking kung saan girls are groomed and forced into sexual exploitation. Trafficked women and girls encounter high rates of physical and sexual violence, including homicide and torture, psychological abuse, and horrific work. Kaya this must end. So, Article 7, so dapat ini-ensure din ng government na may equal rights ang mga kababaihan when it comes to politics, rights to vote and participate. Ganoon na din sa pagpo-formulate ng mga batas at pag-perform ng all public functions at all levels of government. Pero meron pa ding mga bansa ang hindi allowed ang mga kababaihan to vote and participate. Dito naman sa Pilipinas, women have political rights, pero hindi pa rin bukas sa marami na women are capable of leading a nation. You may be qualified, pero many will see you as babae lang. So, other articles is to be discussed by Princess.
Article 8, dito sa Article 8 is ito yung yung participation of at the international level. So yung yung pamahalaan is gumagawa sila na to ensure women opportunity na mag-represent their government at the international level and participate in international organizations. So, Article 9 mandates state parties to guarantee women equal rights with men to acquire, change, or retain their nationality and equal rights with respect to the nationality of their case. Article 10 mandates equal opportunity in education for female and encourage co-education. It also provides equal access to athletics, scholarships, and grants, as well as require reduction in female student dropout rates, sanctions. In Article 11 naman, dito is yung employment. So, yung government will eliminate discriminations against in workplace. Yung mga kababaihan sa trabaho, gaya ng mga lalaki, as well as and special protections against harmful. In Article 12, creates the obligation of states parties to train women in the field of healthcare in order to ensure access to care services, including those related to family planning. So, dito sa Article 13 is economic life and sport. So, dito naman is yung government will act to eliminate discrimination against women in the economic and social arenas. Yung mga kababaihan is will have equal access to family benefits, loans, and credit creational activities, sports, and cultural life. Sa Article 14 naman is yung rural women. So, yung government will ensure that the particular needs of rural women are not met and employment opportunities and social equality, schemes, and act to eliminate discriminations against women. So, the next article will discuss by Mike.
Article 15. Ang halimbawa nito ay may lupa at bahay ang mag-asawa, then gusto na nilang maghiwalay, nararapat na dapat na hatiin ng mag-asawa ang lupa at bahay. Article 16, pwede pong gamitin dito ang Republic Act number 9262 or yung tinatawag na Vousel Law. Dapat tratuhin ng tama at patas ang mga kababaihan. Dapat legal ang pagpapakasal at higit sa lahat dapat kasal ang isang tao doon sa kinakasama niya. For example, naisipan ng isang partner niya na maghiwalay ngunit hindi niya magagawa lalo na dito sa Pilipinas, walang batas na pwedeng mag-divorce. Article 17. Ang halimbawa nito ay hindi na mailalapat ang diskriminasyon sa mga kababaihan sa panahon ngayon dahil may mga batas na nagproprotekta dito. Article 18. Halimbawa, gagawa ng batas ang kagawaran ng barangay, kinakailangan na muna gumawa ng ordinansa para sa kapakanan ng barangay at ipataw ang ordinansa sa pagbubuwis at iba pa. Article 19. Halimbawa, ako ay gagawa ng isang batas, dapat ito ay may katibayan at kinakailangan pirmado mismo ng kasamahan ng mga pamahalaan. Article 20. Kinakailangan na magkaroon ng session or meeting sa pag-usapan ng mga mambabatas sa barangay kung dapat bang magsumite ng mga batas na nagpoprotekta sa barangay. Article 21. Sinasabi po dito ay dapat ipakita ng mga namumuno ang kanilang mga aktibidad na ginagawa sa paraan ng assembly meeting. Kinakailangan na ipaalam ng mga namumuno ang kanilang mga nagawa. Article 22. Ang halimbawa nito ay nagpapatawag ang isang mayor sa isang press conference kung tawagin para ipaalam sa mga mamamayan ang kahalagahan ng mga ginagawa o nagawa nila sa ahensya ng gobyerno.
Other articles is to be discussed by Kami.
Article 23 and 24 is a saving clause, the purpose of which is to clarify the relationship between provisions of the convention and those contained in other treaties or national law. It is intended to ensure that the highest standard for the protection of women. Next po. Articles 25 to 27 include provisions on participation in the treaty and procedures for revisions and designate the Secretary General as the depository. So Article 28 entitles states parties to accept the convention subject to reservations, but provides that reservations which are incompatible with its object and purpose are not permitted. 29 provides that disputes between two or more states parties about their interpretation of the convention which cannot be settled by negotiations. So Article 30 provides for the authenticity of the Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish texts of the convention, and that these shall be deposited with the Secretary General.
So, pero despite na marami ng laws to protect women, in a report by HR in Asia, it was also found that 76% of female respondents in the Philippines deal with inequality and prejudice in the workplace, with 17% admitting to be questioned about their desire to have family during the interview process. So, these facts compounded by political leaders who have blatantly vilified women, such as President Duterte previously saying that there are things women can't do and jobs women can't take on. So that's all. Thank you.